Barbara Tuchman was one of the great historians of the 20th century. In this video, I'm going to take a look at how she went about the business of writing and research. Hello, this is David welcoming you to another D&D History Hub podcast. Barbara Tuchman ranks amongst the greatest historians of the 20th century. She was a 2 times winner of the Pulitzer Prize, and her books were extremely popular with the general public, but a little bit less so among academics. Her best-selling The Guns of August, for example, is a masterpiece of storytelling. It's a work of art crafted with attention to detail and communicated in writing of crystalline clarity. I'm going to try to tease out some of the elements of Tuckman's genius that combine to make her a historian still worthy of study and emulation. To do this, I'll be using examples of her writing and her reflections on the historian's craft, not just from The Guns of August, but also from 2 of her many other books, Practicing History Selected Essays, which is this book here, if you can see it, and The Proud Tower. It's another one of her books. It's got The Proud Tower, Portraits of the World Before the War. A bit lesser known than The Guns of August, but still very, very important and good books. Now, I provide a link below to a previous video I made in which I gave an overview of The Guns of August and Tuckman's writing. And in my view, that's one of the best books on the Great War ever written. And before I continue, I'd like to invite you to subscribe to my channel and to please give us a thumbs up like to this video if you appreciate the content. So, to the great Barbara Tuchman. Her outlook on writing was simple. The object is to hold the reader's attention so that they keep on turning the page to the end. She is very aware of the responsibilities of the historian in dealing with the people of the past. She understands the power of words to distort history, and so, she says, one has a duty to be accurate. Careless use of words can leave a false impression one had not intended. She's also very aware of another trap too. That is, an almost frightening autonomous power to produce in the mind of the reader an image or idea that was not in the mind of a writer. And as a writer myself, I can attest to that. Obviously, she says, words operate this way in all forms of writing, but history is particularly sensitive, and so one has a duty to be accurate, as the careless use of words can leave an unintended false impression. She says, I am a disciple of the ounce because I mistrust history in gallon jugs, whose purveyors are more concerned with establishing the meaning and purpose of history than with what actually happened. Referring to war poetry, Tuckman says that what the World War I poets did was to convey the feeling of an episode or a moment of history as they sensed it. However, the historian's task is to tell what happened within the discipline of facts. What imagination is to the poet, she says, facts are to the historian. The exercise of judgment comes in their selection, the art in their arrangement. The historian's job, says Tuckman, demands primary familiarity with primary sources, such as original documents held in archives. It's wise to be wary of newspapers as sources for factual information, she says, but she reveals she likes them for what she calls period flavour, rather than for factual information. Newspapers, she says, are an important portal into the language of their day, of how people actually spoke. As an example, she writes, "In the New York Times for August the 10th, 1914, I read an account of the attempt by German officers disguised in British uniforms to kidnap General Lehmann at Liège. The reporter wrote that the General Staff, maddened by the dastardly violation of the rules of civilized warfare, spared not, but slew." This sentence, she says, had a tremendous effect on her. "In it, I saw all the difference between the world before 1914 and the world since," she writes. "No reporter could write like that today, could use the word dastardly, could take as a matter of course the concept of civilized warfare, could write unashamedly, 'spared not, but slew.' Today," she says, "the sentence is embarrassing, but in 1914 it reflected how people thought and the values they believed in." Now, Tuckman describes herself as a narrative historian, a factual storyteller, something looked down on by academics, but I don't mind, she says, because no one could possibly persuade me that telling a story is not the most desirable thing a writer can do. But narrative history, she says, is neither as simple nor straightforward as it seems. Rather, it requires arrangement and planning, just like a painting. Structure is chiefly a problem of selection. One cannot put in everything, as the result would be a shapeless mass, she says. The job is to achieve a narrative line without straying from the essential facts. Historians, says Tuchman, start with a great advantage over fiction writers because our characters, being public, are invested with the power to affect destiny. They are the captains and kings, saints and fanatics, traitors, rogues and villains, pathfinders and explorers, thinkers and creators even. Occasionally, heroes. They are significant, if not necessarily admirable. They may be evil, or corrupt, or mad, or stupid, but at least by virtue of circumstance or chance or character, they matter. They are the actors, not the acted upon. So here, she's telling us what kind of historian she is. One interested in narrative, great events, and the reasons for them, and the drama encountered by the people caught up in them. I think she sits in the tradition of the 19th century German historian Leopold von Ranke, who emphasized the importance of primary sources, research, and narrative writing, storytelling, if you will. History, says Tuckman, can be studied and written for its own sake, as a record of human behavior, the most fascinating subject of all. Insistence on a purpose turns the historian into a prophet, and that is another profession altogether, she writes. Tuckman is vitally aware of what she calls the independent power of words to impact on the understanding of history. Words, she says, have an almost frightening autonomous power to produce in the mind of the reader an image or idea that was not in the mind of the writer. I can attest to that as well, in a long experience of readers interpreting something I've written in a way not intended. Now, obviously, words operate in this way in all forms of writing, but history is particularly sensitive because, she says, one has a duty to be accurate, and careless use of words can leave a false impression that one had not intended. This power of words to escape from a writer's control is a fascinating problem. So this has been just a short excursion into the work of a great historian. If you're interested in more insights on history from Barbara Tuchman, let me know in the comments section below, and I'll see what I can do about creating another video. But that's enough for now. Thank you for listening, and goodbye.